If you're an audiophile and don't want to waste your money in 2026, then do not skip this video. I've ranked over 400 IEMs and made my own as well, and here is my pick for the best price categories for 2026. Starting with the first category, we have the best priced performance, or in other words, these are the most technical and detailed IEMs for the least amount of money. Here we have the $400 to $500 price range, where you can find many technical monsters like the Hypeform Mark IIs, the Nice Hack Rockies, the Zen's Top Pro, the T Pro SEs. For reference, out of the 400 plus IEMs I've ranked, only 15 of them have a technical score of S- or 8.5 out of 10, which puts these 15 IEMs in the top 4% of all IEMs ranked when it comes to pure technical prowess. And going even a step further, out of these 15 S- IEMs, 5 of those, or a whopping 33%, are in the $400 to $500 range, with the $400 Hypeform Mark IIs at S- or 9 out of 10. So as evident by the data, this price range is absolutely stacked if you just want pure detail and pure performance, but without paying the kilobuck prices. Then for our next category, we have the best value price range, or IEMs that aren't quite as technical as the $400 to $500 ones, but nonetheless they are still very good when it comes to performance, and they offer a lot for the price that you're paying for. These are going to be more affordable, and we have the classics at around $150 to $200, like the SimGod Super Mix 4, the Truth Theorem Nova, the Kizadio Chopin. But now with the new edition of the Myers CK2V, if you want something more, bright, treble leaning, airy, as well as the Daybreaks and the P50s for a more neutral, softer, and safer listen. But there's also another price category. If we move down to under $15, we also have a lot of banger starter sets that punch well above its price, like a lot of the KZ and CCA stuff, which often goes on sale for under 15 bucks. You can get these for like $10 to even $8 sometimes. Here we also have the very hype GK content, which might be related to KZ, but don't quote me on that. But I've seen these go as low as $5, and the value you're getting is pretty insane because they're basically a mini version of the SimGod EW300, assuming if you get yours, because my second unit didn't come in after my first unit broke. So with that in context, the QC and the longevity is not the best. Is very questionable actually, but if you're just starting out and you want to try different tunings without breaking the bank, then nothing really is gonna beat these, since again they're like $5. Now as for an honorable mention, I would personally step up to around $20 to $30, where you can find slightly better tuning and performance, like the Alua Ultras, the 1R2s, the Tangem Bunny, the Zero Ultimas. You got your older classics like the SimGod EW100, the Moondrop Chew 2, right? Those will all have a better track record of quality control because mainly it's not KZ, and although they're not going to be Honda or Toyota reliability, at least you'll get your stuff and they won't break as easily, hopefully. Next, after those, moving up to the price range where you can find the most variety when it comes to just tuning, different sounding IEMs and just more unique sounding sets in general, we have the $200 to $300 range. It's actually pretty loaded here with the sheer amount of options you have. For example, you have your all-rounders like the Odysseys, the Astros, Timeless 2, the new Tantrum Soda, to bass head and warmer sets like the Deuce, Martellos, Estrella, the Crescents, to vocal IEMs like the Volume S, Odyssey 2, Condenser 4, and then brighter and airier stuff like the Ziad Horizons and the QBR Septet. There's obviously a lot more, but this price range is where a lot of people like staying around because not only is the overall quality and performance of the IEM better, but you also don't have to pay the $500 plus to $1,000 plus premium to hear something different. This price range is where a lot of audiophiles find their favorite sound and use that as a reference to look for a more expensive upgrade down the line with a similar tuning, but now just more refined and technical as their quote-unquote endgame. For example, for me, this would be discovering the original Manger T's, to then later upgrading to the Divas and now the Let's Share Mystic 8s, and also the original Zigat Odysseys, to then later upgrading to the Theaudio Valhallas. But speaking of endgames, lastly we have our endgame price bracket, and this is actually very similar to last year's, but with the entry price actually decreasing by $100. So instead of starting at $500 and ending around $600, you can now get your foot into the door and potentially find your end game for only $400 with IEMs like the Hyper Mark IIs and the Zen's T Pro SE. But that's not all, because with the introduction of the Rockies, you can now get real quote-unquote ESC drivers, not the piezo ones, for under $500 with very similar performance offered by kilobuck sets like the Monarchs. Because when it comes to quote-unquote endgame technical performance, 500 is going to be enough for most people nowadays, especially with the type of IEMs that are coming out. Maybe 1K if you really can't find, that one specific niche tuning, but I would definitely not go over 2K, because at that price, you can get a nice pair of the stock speakers that sounds much better, more tactile in the bass, way bigger soundstage, actual, center imaging, better low-end dynamics, and overall just a more natural timbre. Now, recommendations aside, here are the price ranges where I would keep my eyes on or just like watch out for in general. And the first one is anywhere between, $600, $700 to $1,000, where these IEMs are going to be a little bit more premium, but also often comes with like an upcharge. For example, you have the Saphir's RS5 Mark IIs, where you're paying $700, or the Lecture Amber, the fat-free Quantum, where you're paying like $500 to $600 for a single planar. I mean, they look nice, the build is pretty nice, they sound good, but come on. There's also a lot of boutique brands like Flip Ears, you got Symphonium, you got, 7 Acoustics, where the IEM itself, again, sounds pretty good. I enjoy them, but the value, just isn't quite there compared to its competition. I think the only reason why someone would pay extra for one of those would be either because they really like the design or the craftsmanship, or, the current market just doesn't offer that specific tuning at, $400, $500. We do have the hardware and logistics to get ESDs down to $500 as proven by the Rockies, but it's just that the tuning variety hasn't quite trickled down there yet. Now, of course, you do have some exceptions like the Theaudio Origin. If you want to like an endgame based set, you have the Lecture Mystic 8 for female vocals, or the Monarch Mark IIs for just vocals in general, which I do think they justify their price. But as a whole, on average, I would be cautious dropping a lot of cash here, because Sci-Fi moves very fast, where it's very possible that, we start seeing that type of tuning for a lot less in a couple of months down the line. Another price region I watch out for, especially when it comes to upgrading, would be the $80 to $100 price category, mainly because if you just pay a little bit more, you're going to be able to unlock the Supermix 4, the Nova, the Chopin, the Daybreaks at around like $150, which are all going to be better tuned and more technically capable versus a $100 set like the Defiant or even the EM6L, for example, especially because those two sets are known for some QC issues. You're just going to see a bigger return on investment going from $50 to $150 versus, $50 to $100. It's not going to be as drastic where you're going from the confined Clean SV to the confined Delcy or the Quatillo versus going from the SV to the Supermix 4 or the Chopin. Even with SimGod's own lineup, which are known for their value, there's still a bigger difference going from the EW300 to the Supermix 4 versus going from the EW300 to the EA500LM. The only exception at this price range is the EM6L if you're willing to EQ, because they are one of the smoothest IEMs when it comes to EQing, makes it very easy. But EQ aside, stock out of the box, it just makes more sense for most people to pay just a little bit more and go for the SM4, the Nova, or the Chopin. So as far as the upgrade path goes, I would recommend starting out by buying something cheap, under $20, $15, like the KZ or CCA to test out the waters, see what broad, sound signature you fall into. Then after those, move up to like a higher quality set around $50, like the Clean SV. And then after those, jump to around $150 for something a little bit more technical, but also great in value, like the Supermix 4, like the Chopin on sale, which are both in the top 10% of the rankings when it comes to, pure performance, but at a fraction of the cost, hence making them a very great value pick if you just want pure technicality. Then after having that technical part checked off with the SM4 or the Chopin, you can now at the same time, dabble into the $200, $300 range, find that one unique sounding IEM which is gonna click with you, and then after that, look for the similar sound but just a little bit more refined, better technicalities, and that will become your quote-unquote endgame. And while you're finding your endgame, I would just stick around the $200, $300 range or even cheaper. You know, try out different type of sounds. Don't fully commit to something like very expensive if you haven't tried something cheaper that sounds similar, because you're just wasting money at that point. I would rather you guys find that specific sound first and then jump straight to your endgame and pull the trigger on that. That aside, I hope you found this guide to be helpful. The price categories might change depending on what comes out because it is Sci-Fi. You never know what's going to happen. Keep your eyes out for any crazy new releases or crazy deals. Let us know if you see any. And thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see everyone in the next one.
Shout out to Dom Q, Rorax Cat, B Urak, Disco Scaldus, Walker Standard, Patrick, User, Contain Guava Juice Gains, Mr. Gorillas, Polly J, Gis Sang Young, Christopher Jackson, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, 777ZK, PM the Wizard, Obi, Triple Extended, Matt Herc, TR8107, Shrimp Backlay, FKSRG, Cousin Fat Fat, Julius Phillip, Dead Riddle, Gatoy, Nico Gabriel, Addy, Michael, Trackstar, Raphael, I'm J-Rack, Ryan, Ori, Edwin, Torcog, Effinadim, Rash, Chimika, Javir, Gilbog, Ocean, AK131, BC Knight, MN Gelato, Watcho, Vitor, Unbalanced, Tuna, Robert, Polar, Drave Gaming, JRX, Samuel, John Simon, Archie, Beefy Pigeon, The Surgeon, Evan, Forrest, Ninja Watcher, Brandon Fish, and Sir Essen. Thank you guys so much for the support.